Hello and welcome to the show. I'm here on BeamNG Drive for some more downhill chaos, and we start today with possibly the most significant, most iconic of the rally cars. That is the Audi Quattro. Being a rally car, I was expecting this to do fairly well. I mean, it's designed to go quickly off-road. This may be perhaps a tad extreme terrain in places, but you know, it's still designed with certainly with plenty of off-roading in mind. It's not quite got the same ground clearance, the same ride height as some of the trucks that we've had down here, but it's still very much an off-road orientated vehicle. And things were going well on the first run until we may have got a little bit out of shape coming up towards a jump. And that's not a good place to get out of shape. It may have got a bit too much airtime and fallen off the mountain a small bit. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't the greatest of starts with the Audi, but it was a remarkably easy car to drive, if I'm honest. Carrying a bit much speed through turn 2, ran a bit wide, couldn't quite bring it back together again, and yeah, clipped a tree and a rock, and it tore off a wheel, which is not particularly helpful. There wasn't really any sort of major problems with the car. It was more me getting a little bit carried away. It certainly felt like you could take a lot of speed, so I was trying to push the car early on, and I got myself into a little bit of trouble here and there. As I said, it doesn't have the greatest of ride heights, and the suspension is a little bit bouncy, so as we came under braking there, it was just getting flung from left to right. I was trying frantically to get the car back under control. Very nearly clipped a nasty tree. It didn't really matter in the end anyway, as I couldn't get it stopped into the final corner. We've lost the front bumper and various pieces. The car's still working, so in traditional rally style, I will finish the stage. Yeah. The suspension, I think the suspension is a tad soft. It kind of bounces the car around a bit. I mean, it does deal with the bumps. It does go over the bumps okay, but it does occasionally cause the odd accident, such as here through turn 1. That's a big bounce, and that's a painful crash with a tree. I've ruined an Audi Quattro quite categorically there. Yeah. I was surprised actually, because I was taking that corner faster and faster that turn 1. You could do it flat out in this, but if you get it wrong, that's the kind of crash you end up having, because it will just bounce off the small little bumps. I may have turned in a bit too early on that corner, and it does roll quite well. I'll give it that. It does like to tumble a little bit. Not the best of cars, but still pretty good. Pretty good on the rolling front, I should say. The jump wasn't any problem. The second of the jumps. Sometimes road cars can have issues with it, but of course this one here is perfectly okay. May have brushed the bush, and then that put me into the annoying tree. That is probably the most annoying tree, or possibly one of the most annoying obstacles, that tree, on this entire... The amount of times you just end up clipping it by accident. It's, yeah, not really ideal. As I said, there wasn't normally too much problem with that second jump. You can still get yourself in trouble. I think that was the only time I actually crashed on the jump. These cars got enough speed and got good enough suspension to get over it most of the time, but if you line it up wrong, you will have a problem. After a little while, I got a clean run with this car. It really wasn't any trouble, particularly for the Audi. Most of the mistakes were me trying to push the car a little bit too hard. It's a very, very good car. I have to say, it was very, very good driving it down here. The suspension was a little soft and a little bouncy, but it dealt with the bumps most of the time okay. Only downside really is it's not the fastest of cars. It's not got the same acceleration and punch out of the corners as some of the other vehicles that I've driven down here. It just lacks perhaps that ultimate acceleration, such as the Buggy and the Scarab have had down here. It doesn't quite accelerate out of the corners as well. It lacks a little bit in overall speed, but it's one of the easiest cars to drive. I really recommend you give this Audi a go. As we do it all, that's not the conventional braking technique, okay? You don't tend to sort of go on the nose of the car. It's not good for slowing down. And again, to be fair, it was quite dramatic on this run. It didn't normally do that. It's just the way that I brushed over the bumps. Again, we clipped the very dangerous tree. The boot is slightly hanging open, but it doesn't matter, no problem, as we blast towards the finish line. As you can see on the speedo, not particularly quick. on the old acceleration front. However, it has made it. It crossed the line. We have now slightly got it stuck in a pole. I'm still not sure physics quite knew what to do with the Audi there. I'm not sure that should quite work, but yeah, very good off-road car, this one. It can deal with an awful lot. And yeah, it was quite good fun to drive. Up next, yeah, it's a steamroller. I saw this, I had to give it a go. I honestly didn't quite know what to expect with this thing. Safe to say, this is not easy to drive, as you can imagine. You have to drive this very differently to everything else I've ever driven on. I think in the forum posting it said that this is supposed to weigh 20 tons, which is an awful lot of weight. It also has no brakes. There is almost no way of slowing this thing down. And we are going downhill, and at some points quite a steep downhill section. Now you will hear the engine getting very angry with me. On this first run I wasn't quite sure what on earth I was to be doing with the vehicle, but I did figure out a way of getting the vehicle to slow down. On this first run I kind of panicked and was pressing buttons manically to try and stop it, and a tree ended up doing the job for me. The tree worked quite well as a brake there. I'm not sure a tree should stop a 20-ton steamroller, but never mind about that. The only way you can stop this vehicle is to sort of flick through the gears and put it in reverse, other than the obvious hitting of trees. Okay, the hitting of trees is one way to stop the steamroller. If you want to try and stop it and go round a corner, you have to flick it into reverse while it's still going forward, and then use that to try and slow it down. No brake, no handbrake. I think the handbrake has a tiny effect on the vehicle, but it's not a very big one. Or in fact, is barely noticeable apart from at very low speeds. So yeah, you will hear a very tortured engine in this car, or in this vehicle, I should say, because I'm having to try and slow it down with reverse. Basically, I put it in reverse and then full throttle, and it kind of slows it down a bit. That's the only way you can ever try and get this thing stopped. And as you can see, it is an absolute pain in the arse to try and control this vehicle. This bit here is terrifying. I'm full on reverse. This is all the brakes that I have. I can't slow it down. Amazingly, it actually has enough speed to clear the jump. That's how much momentum this thing's got going for it. Problem is, this next corner, it is so steep, I didn't know what to do. I ended up just kind of, I lost a little bit of control and then chucked it off the cliff in the hope that, well, maybe we could salvage something and get it going in some way. Unfortunately, it was kind of caught on a tree. It was still working, as you can see, things are spinning. And if, in all honesty, if I could have got it free from the tree, I would have probably completed the run, and that's probably the best I would have done with the damn thing. Because it doesn't stop. It's very difficult to turn because the roller at the front, if you like, you're sort of full out on the steering, and it takes it a good 5 seconds before it actually then goes to full on the steering. So it's very unresponsive steering on this. As I would imagine, it is not. The steamrollers are not particularly easy to drive in real life. But yeah, it is so hard to be precise with the steering. And then when you add on the no brakes and the fact that it weighs an awful lot and it just doesn't stop, it's very tough to drive. Amazingly, I made it over the jump. I'm still not sure how I slowed it down for that corner on this particular run. Irritatingly, I couldn't stop it from going too far over this bit. I just couldn't slow it down in time. I was frantically trying to steer and slow it down, and then I crashed the game. I don't quite know what it got on. It got unhappy. If I put the steamroller in that little ditch, it got very unhappy. I don't know why it did it, but that's just a thing that it did. So, yeah, put all of that together, and this was horribly tricky. I also managed to have the lowest speed roll I've ever had, I think, in a vehicle, and it's 3 miles an hour. I managed to put it on its, I say roll, I put it on its side, not perhaps a full roll, but yeah, you can see the difficulties with one of these things. Again, trying to slow it down, trying the very best I could, and it just got stuck in a ditch again. I was trying to get it free, because it took so long to get to these points each time. I kind of started to get the hang of it after a while, so I could kind of get down to this stage, but this final section is so difficult because it's just, you can't slow it down in time. It gains so much speed because of the steepness of the course. Even when I got a good clean run over the jump, I can't slow it down, and of course when I'm trying to turn in with a vehicle like this, it just rolls if I get that route. I have to find a way of slowing it down before that corner. I got lucky once by using the bumps on the inside. but it's very hard to reliably aim the vehicle at it because the steering is so imprecise. Again, we're running a little bit wide. There's not really the opportune line over there. It's also not really a good idea to get it stuck again. It would happen occasionally that that this thing would get beached. It is sort of two-roller drive, so you know you could kind of get away with a little bit on it. You still had decent enough-ish traction, if you like. I made it over the jump and was kind of a bit slower than before. I'm trying to use the bumps, but it gets very steep very quickly here, so sort of got to try and chuck it in. Almost so close made it out the other. I mean, the roller was slightly broken at the back, and then again the game got a bit unhappy as it tried to fold the thing in half with that crash. Yeah, this final section, I just couldn't do it. I just could not get the vehicle to make it through here. I mean, I was kind of hoping if I could smack sort of the back or the front or something over the jump, maybe I could take away a load of momentum, but I couldn't be precise enough in aiming with this to actually get it to do that. And of course I can't slow it down and alter, really, it just does what it wants down that slope basically. And after much time, I couldn't do it. I think it is perhaps possible if you got absurdly lucky. The problem is you have to hit everything absolutely 100% perfectly down here and have all of the luck involving bumps and involving being slowed down. And then even then, I'm not sure about the next corner, that final corner. It may be too steep down the next bit. It's not really, well, to be fair to a bulldozer, it's not, or a bulldozer, a steamroller, it's not really designed for this sort of thing. I couldn't do it. I couldn't drive it down the mountain. I got very close. It got further than perhaps I thought it might, but I can't get it down the course. So we have our second DNF. Our third and final vehicle for today is the Moonhawk. However, this is a modified version. We've got an estate car. There are loads of different versions of this, or in this mod, there's lots of different slightly altered versions. So I've got an estate version with the sort of the open bonnet with the exhaust out the front, and there's like a derby version as well of this car. It's quite a cool mod actually. Again, another very, very customizable one. You can mess about with this quite a lot. Yeah, I thought I would give this one a go. We've had the Moonhawk go down here before. I think we had a four-wheel drive one attempt, of course, as well. So I was interested to see how this one compared. The original Moonhawk really struggled with the suspension. The car got bounced around an awful lot and it really struggled to actually put any power down. And despite this one here being longer, quite a lot longer wheelbase, and have huge overhangs, amazingly this was a much better off-road car. This was, again, another car that was very, very easy to drive. I messed the corner up here a little bit, and then that was my fault. And then we might not quite be stopping. I was so surprised to have a nice car to drive, having spent many times with the steamroller. I got caught out a little bit by actually having grip, braking and turning. I may have made a flattened, sort of a more aerodynamical, there we go, that's what we'll call it, an aerodynamically improved, well, I say that, there were flappy bumpers, that probably doesn't help with aerodynamics. Yeah, anyway, back to the car. Yeah, very nice vehicle to drive. It doesn't have the ground clearance of the Quattro or any of the proper off-road vehicles that we've had. However, it did handle the bumps remarkably well. I say that we are upside down in the in the finishing area. Yeah, the corner after that second jump can occasionally be a pain getting a vehicle slowed down for. Even one like this that's much more sensible may have carried a little bit too much speed over the jump. There is a bit of a mound on the inside of that corner that I clipped. Didn't roll it over, but it was enough to kind of throw it off course. This one wasn't my proudest of moments, I'll be honest. I just lost concentration for a split second as we came around the final corner, then realised I'd overcorrected, and we fell off down well, I haven't been down this bit of the map before, so the only consolation is that I have fallen down a hole that I haven't fallen down before, so that's kind of okay. It didn't take very long actually to get a decent run with this car, because it's just an easy vehicle to drive. I have to say, it was, again, much like the Quattro, it was a very nice car to drive, this one, but very controllable. Not quite as nice over the bumps as the Audi. You would expect that, though. This is much more of a road-going version. There is a lip spoiler on the front. You may see, I think you saw that ping off at the start. The lip spoiler at the front didn't last very long. Okay, it was far too low for this particular course. Yeah, so that went pretty quickly. As far as speed goes, it is not the fastest car we've ever had down here. It is also rear-wheel drive. I'm pretty sure it's rear-wheel drive. So yeah, it's not ideally suited, perhaps, to this, but it dealt with the bumps, it dealt with the off-road stuff quite a lot better than I expected. It is better than the standard Moonhawk. Certainly was a lot easier to drive, and this is with, well, look at the size of the rear overhang it's got going. I think this is based on the same wheelbase, perhaps, but it's got very much larger overhang at the back, as you would expect from an estate. And it was absolutely okay. The weight distribution wasn't all skewed up or anything. It doesn't really like the jump, as you can imagine, from a road car. As we come to the final couple of corners, it was very nice having a car that actually stopped and turned through there. It was having driven the steamroller, and around the final corner it is a run towards the line, and the Moonhawk has finished, almost managed to get it stopped. Probably would have done had it not sort of torn the entire axle apart going across the rocks. Damage wise, I mean, it'll take a clonk on the front over a couple of the jumps, but it got down without too many problems. It is another lovely, easy car to drive, in all honesty. So yeah, I quite like the Moonhawk, and I quite like the Quattro for sort of just general driving. Onto the times, it is perhaps a little slower time than you might be expecting from the Audi Quattro. A 1:19.9 puts it in a very crowded area of the table, to be honest, in 18th, just behind the four-wheel drive supercar and the game's standard D-Series pickup truck. It's not the most spectacular of times from the Quattro. It just doesn't have the speed and the acceleration of some of the real top cars I've had down here. However, I will say it is one of the nicest off-road cars I've had to drive. Further down we find the Moonhawk Estate, as you would expect, not amazingly quick, around the same as the racing Cadillac, a little bit ahead of the Golf, and is a bit faster than the standard Moonhawk. And again, it's not the most spectacular of times from the car, but it was a very nice vehicle to drive. It didn't take too long to get a run out of the car. Yeah, it held up to all the bumps. It did everything I asked of it down this course. So yeah, that's not too bad from the estate car. Well, there we go. That is it for this downhill chaos. I'll put a link to all the mods I used in the description so you can download them and have a go with them yourself. However, that is it for today. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.